Hi, Tim Wilhoit here today. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about body language. Body language, most gestures a lot of people don't understand are brain triggers. That psychologically we've got things going on and why people do certain things. They're trying to access different parts of the brain. And when you can learn what those triggers are, it will help you during a sales presentation, during a training presentation, to kind of help read your people that you're talking to. One that's very simple, most people have seen this one most of their life, is scratching the top of their head. It's kind of that Stanley Laurel, that's confusion. When you access this part of the brain, what you're saying to me is confusing. So if you're training a class and you've got 15 people in the class and 5 of them are doing this, you need to kind of slow down with what you're doing. They're not getting it. Rubbing the brow is basically a sign of doubt or worry. So if you're trying to solve a problem for somebody and they start doing a lot of this, they're doubting what you're saying, or they're worried what you're saying is not going to work for them. Students do this one a lot. You'll see they'll take a pencil and they'll tap between their eyes, or you'll see somebody do this. Basically, that's forced recall. When you start tapping there, it's helping you to remember maybe a test question, a name, a place, something you're trying to recall, and you're forcing your brain to go there to help you recall that. Pinching, pulling, scratching, rubbing their nose. Basically that means someone is feeling pressure or they're feeling controlled. So if you're a sales trainer and you've got a salesperson, brand new salesperson, you're going, tomorrow we're going to go out and do some sales calls. You're going to do the cold calling. I'm going to be with you to support you. And you start to see them do this or pulling. What they do, they feel controlled. That they really don't want to do that, and they feel like you have a power over them. So you may want to make them feel a little more at ease. If you're talking to someone, sales presentation, training presentation, and you see them start to lean this way, putting their finger, touching their temple, basically that is a mental saturation point. It's time for a break, okay? When you've got 15 people in a training class and you start to see the majority of them do this, all right, it's break time. You got to get them out of that mode. They've handled about all they can handle at that point. Someone that you're talking to and all of a sudden they cover their mouth. Okay, that is a sign of disbelief, of critical analysis. So, it's a nice way to saying, I don't believe it, or perhaps I think you're lying, or something along those lines. Now, if someone covers their mouth while speaking, that could mean they have a fear of speaking, or they're hiding something. You'll see this where lawyers are taught to watch jurors and things for body language. So you'll see that come up quite often. If you see someone and they're talking and they start to grab their chin, what this is an extension of the chin. The chin and the nose are signs of power and leadership. And when you see somebody do that, they're feeling insecure of the person they're talking to. And the body is psychologically trying to compensate. This person is superior to me, and this is my way of compensating for it. So when you see somebody do that, they don't feel at ease with what you're saying when you start to see them holding their chin, grabbing their chin. Pulling at the skin on your throat is usually a concern about expression. I'm guilty of this one myself. I teach a lot of training classes and someone's asking a pretty long question. I will catch myself actually doing this because I'm trying to, how can I put this to where they will understand it the first time so I don't have to go into a long explanation again. Pulling on your lips, touching your lips is a sign of greed. So if you're on the car lot and you're getting ready to buy a car and you start to say, okay, how much for this particular car, and the salesman starts to do this, or playing with his mustache, or whatever it may be, you're probably going to pay top dollar if you pay that price, because he sees it as a greed sign. This is making me money. So when people do that, it's a sign of, hey, I've hit the jackpot here. I'm getting greedy about it. Pulling on your jowl is usually a sign of, it's a concern about being desirable. So maybe if you're in the dating scene or whatever, and you know, the guy's sitting across the table and he's kind of doing this, he's concerned that he's not desirable enough to the young woman. So kind of a thing to look for out there. Rubbing the back of the neck is usually a sign. Don't want to talk about it now. I want to think about it. I'm done at this point. So anytime you see that sign, you need to back off a little bit. You're starting to lose that person, and you're going to get the results of, I need to think about it, or you know, going to stop. Actually, rubbing behind the ears is a fear of not being understood. You'll see young salespeople, they'll get a little nervous and they'll start rubbing behind their ears, scratching behind their ears, and they're worried that their presentation is not going to come across correctly. An easy one that we probably all know is cheeks being flushed or tightened. That's a sign of humiliation or embarrassment. That's where we carry that in our body. And then a couple of simple ones as well, body language wise. Crossing your arms is a holding position. You know, when I sit down to do a sales presentation and it starts like this, I'm like, wow, I've got to start breaking some ice. This is a nice way of saying, you know, I'm not moving. You know, you get there and you start to see the arms crossed and the eyes crossed and the lips crossed and everything's crossed. I got a lot to break down, so I gotta start working on that. But it's a nice way when you're going through your presentation and you start to see those arms uncrossed and they put them in front of them. It's like, hey, I'm getting there now. I'm starting to break that holding position. I'm starting to get them into position to make my sell. Drooping shoulders is typically, remember Atlas, you know, holding up the world. Basically, that's what it's saying, is when people have very droopy shoulders, they feel like they have the weight of the world on them. This is somebody that has got a lot of issues that's carrying them with them visibly, that you can see that. You know, it's not that proud, shoulders back, confidence thing. That's something you want to look for, and maybe you can help that person overcome what's kind of dragging them down. And then the last one is arms behind the back. When you see people talk and they're constantly putting their arms behind them, it's a sign of either they're hiding something, or possibly a fear of reaching out, or possibly a fear of being touched. Somebody that requires a lot of space. If you get too close to somebody who's doing this, you will lose them in the communication because they have to have their space. So just kind of some gestures, some brain triggers out there to keep in mind when you're trying to make a sell, or trying to persuade somebody of something. Until next time. That had to be long. Is that under 5?
Not here in a minute.
I think I was going like 18.
Huh?